Uhuru listeners of One Africa Worldview. Uhuru, I am Soliana Bakel, of course, as you all know, your managing editor for the Burning Spear newspaper, the longest running Black Power newspaper. And in fact, we're actually celebrating 57 years since our founding in 1968 by none other than Chairman Omali Yeshitela. But we'll talk more about that in just a few. And today, we're back with another episode of the One Africa Worldview podcast. The show that brings you African internationalist analysis on the day's top headlines, dynamic discussions and presentations from anti-colonial organizers and experts across the globe, and a to what end to our struggle against colonialism with real-time ways on how to engage and get involved. Y'all know the deal. Y'all have been listening to the show, season 3. So just a reminder to all of our loyal listeners, viewers, and to those tuning in with us for the very first time, you can listen to your favorite show, One Africa Worldview, on Black Power 96.3 FM radio, which is broadcast out of St. Petersburg, Florida, but also available worldwide through the Black Power 96 mobile app. And to catch the episode on FM, you can tune on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern to go ahead and listen to our broadcast. So go ahead and download the app and to never miss our show, or go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble channels so you get a notification every single time we are live. And y'all already know that's on Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern. But you have heard me mention that in December, right, the Burning Spear celebrates 57 years since its founding, but we do so in tandem with the anniversary of Chairman Omali Yeshitela tearing down a white nationalist mural that hung in St. Pete, Florida City Hall on December 29, 1966. And this really powerful act of anti-colonial free speech resulted in a prison sentence of 5 years for the chairman, despite the city expressing regret over the mural decades later. And to this day, the wall remains blank, right? A sort of testament to the enduring leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. This was a very important historical moment, not just in our party's history, but in Black Power history, civil rights history as well. And the first tabloid issue of the Spear was published on December 22, 1969. So about 3 years later, as you can see, December is a kind of popular moment in the Uhuru movement's history. And that issue covered the mural struggle, right? Printing the mural on the front page. The founding of the Spear would represent really another important advancement for our struggle, especially with the counterinsurgency war being made on our movement under the banner of COINTELPRO at the time, right? The counterintelligence program that the US government was waging against Black liberation struggles in the 60s and 70s. And the Spear would serve as the primary organizing tool for the Junta of Militant Organizations, or JOMO, which was also led by Chairman Omali. It was a tool that pulled together the scattered forces of the Black Power movement and contributed to the formation of the African People's Socialist Party in 1972. So you can see that the Spear actually predates the founding of the party. And so the tearing down of the mural, as well as the founding of the Spear, were really important acts in the fight for anti-colonial free speech, right? These were the actions and tools needed to give African people our voice. We were able to sum up our conditions as colonialism and say how we needed to organize to overturn them. And the party's historic commitment to ensure that the African workers of the world had the ability to project our own interests, shape our own futures, and define our own narratives really cannot be understated. It truly changed the course of history for our struggle for liberation. And so in honor of these anniversaries, we dedicated our December 2025 print issue of the Spear to, of course, none other than Chairman Omali Yeshitela and his just profound leadership for more than 60 years. That is 60. Okay, that is a lifetime of leadership. And you can get your own print or digital copy at theburningspear.store. And it has a really cool poster of Chairman Omali at the back, so definitely check it out. And you can also become a distributor today and use this paper to organize your community, just like Jomo had managed to do 57 years ago. So it's really a tradition that the Spear is continuing, right? And the Spear is not the only way we're recognizing the leadership of Chairman Omali, right? This episode of the One Africa Worldview is showing the documentary that's surrounding the now viral video of Chairman Omali's presentation at the Oxford Union in January of 2019, where he was invited to argue on the side of a closer African union. And so this 10-minute presentation by the chairman received just a resounding standing ovation from, everyone in attendance. He was the clear victor in this debate. And those 10 minutes have been circulated across the globe, inspiring Africans all over. And you might have heard this presentation before, either on our channel or on a social media platform that you frequent. And so today we're actually going to show the documentary that's produced by Burning Spear Media of not just the presentation at the Oxford Union, but of the chairman's overall trip to London that sort of provides even greater context of the significance of his being there. So let's get started. Presenting now, it is my honor to present Chairman Omali Yeshitela at the Oxford Union, the Africa debate. Let's take a look.
We have to be able to break out of this, but it's going to take revolution in order to do this. African revolution.
I firmly believe in my heart that the day that the black man takes an uncompromising step and realizes that he's within his rights when his own freedom is being jeopardized, to use any means necessary to bring about his freedom or put a halt to that injustice, I don't think he'll be by himself.
On December 4th, 2018, the Oxford Union invited Chairman Omali Yeshitela to participate in the Oxford debates. The invitation read, "Dear Mr. Yeshitela, I hope this email finds you well. I am writing to extend an invitation to speak at the Oxford Union in our forthcoming term. Founded in 1823, the Oxford Union is the largest society at the University of Oxford and one of the most famous student societies in the world. In the past, we have hosted visits ranging from U.S. Presidents Reagan, Nixon, and Carter to Morgan Freeman and Malcolm X. Moreover, we are famous for debating the most important and pressing issues of the day, from a liberty and security debate last year to the King and Country debate of 1933. We would love for you to be a part of this tradition and speak on the motion, this House believes the left must reclaim populism. With a lifetime of fighting for freedom for African people, you are a globally inspiring champion for racial equality and socialism. Your vision has been crucial to shaping the theory of African internationalism and indeed the socialist movement worldwide. This timely debate would be hugely benefited by your irreplaceable perspective and input. The topic would later change to, should this House embrace an ever closer African Union? And the debate was themed, the Africa debate.
It's because of young Africans right here in Ferguson who stood up.
Chairman Omali Yeshitela accepted the invitation, bringing the theory of African internationalism to the world stage.
I cannot stand before this august body without prefacing my statement in defense of closer unity of Africa, without stating first my unconditional solidarity with President Uhuru and the government and people of Venezuela who are currently under attack, savage attack, by the declining world hegemony of the United States. I think it's absolutely necessary to say that coming from that country, and especially looking at the fact that the United States travels the world claiming, presenting itself as the guardian of democracy and the rights of the peoples around the world, where the reality is that Africans who are colonized in the United States represent at least half of the largest prison population in the world. There are more Africans in prison in the United States than there are people in Djibouti or in Equatorial Guinea. And so we find it very difficult also recognizing that by their own estimate, it would take 228 years for the income of Africans colonized in the United States to equal that of the colonial white population. So it is absolutely necessary for me to stand here today before you expressing total opposition to the United States government's terroristic actions against the people of Venezuela with an attempt to starve the people into opposition to their government. Mr. President, brothers and sisters, comrades, it is also necessary for us to say that this question of a closer union with Africa, or between Africans, or within Africa, is not a purely academic question, despite the fact that this debate has occurred within the pinnacle of bourgeois academia. That there is a natural, historical inclination for Africa and African people to be united, which is one of the reasons I am here today. The truth of the matter is that this discussion about the unity of Africa, union of Africans, started much earlier than any incursion, as it might be characterized, of China or the Trump administration into Africa. Reality is that Africa came under assault some 600 years ago when Portugal first came and captured African people and initiated a process that would begin capitalism and would establish and consolidate the identity of Europeans in the world. It is a reality that capitalism rests upon a foundation of African slavery. Africans were first capital. And in order for this to occur and to last, it was absolutely necessary to keep African people divided so that we could not resist this horrible incursion on Africa that continues up to now. I think it's important to be able to say that. I think that we have to say that we've seen example after example by African people to unite. We've seen what used to be warring tribes in this geographical terrain that we occupy at this moment, able to achieve a sense of sameness that people refer to as nations, founded on a common economy that came from slavery and colonialism. This is the basis of the unity that we seek. If there is a problem with the European Union today, it is because the foundation, the economic foundation of capital, of imperialism, is being stressed by the struggles of the oppressed peoples of the world to take back their resources from this parasite that bleeds Africa, that bleeds the world, that bleeds Afghanistan, that bleeds the people of Yemen who are dying by the thousands even as we have this discussion. This is the basis of a Brexit. It can't stand together anymore because the host is rejecting the parasite. And it's creating crisis throughout Europe and throughout the imperialist world. I think it's necessary, brothers and sisters, to say that there has been a natural trajectory by African people for closer union. We know that we're talking about having this discussion in part because in We talk about a united Africa and African Union because of what European imperialism has done to Africa to keep us divided. We know it's true. We saw 100 years or so ago, Marcus Garvey organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association in African Communities Leagues that stretched across the globe. More than 11 million African people everywhere were connected to this. Africa for Africans, at home and abroad. That was the cry. Not Africans for Nigerians that didn't even exist until the British created it in 1915. And Flora Shaw, the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard, came up with the name nigger area. Not this false national consciousness that has been imposed on Africans around the world. So when the Portuguese found shrimp on West Africa and then named it for the Portuguese word for shrimp, Cameroon, it is not true that they are shrimp despite the fact that the people call themselves Cameroonians today. It is a false national consciousness. A false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have a closer union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. The Organization of African Union, created on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, was part of an effort to circumvent efforts by Kwame Nkrumah to build a single union of African states. And instead they come up with an Organization of African Union that codified the colonial borders that were created by Europe in 1884-85. We have to be able to break out of this, but it's going to take revolution in order to do this. African revolution in order to do this. African revolution that will destroy imperialism and the world economy that's responsible for the growing evisceration of the masses of people around the world. Uhuru.
Well, it was quite informative, as usual, on point. That definitely Africa needs revolution.
Uhuru! How are you? So good to see you.
How do you feel about tonight?
5-5 the list, you hear me? They ain't ready for revolution, you know what I mean? They don't even want to address the question.
Chairman, how did the Oxford Union receive the Third International?
It was an interesting thing, but it was more about debating tactics than it was about anything else, but I guess that's what could be expected. You know, in the final analysis, the vote is taken by African people, and it's taken by the fact of union, by the fact that the African Socialist International does exist, and we're building in what they call South Africa, and building in Kenya, and building in Ghana, and building, you know, with Africans who are located in France and the United Kingdom and Germany and, you know, Belgium and throughout the United States and, you know, in the Caribbean. That is the actual occurrence of the revolutionary revolutionary union that we're talking about, not this farce that came together after 1963, which was an attempt to block any kind of union, real union with Africa. We're talking about the union that Kwame Nkrumah talked about, but it can only occur through revolution. That means that the existing order has to be overthrown, destroyed, and the workers and the poor peasants have to come to power with their own revolutionary party. So we did what we could in 10 minutes. Yeah. What's that?
Actually, the debate was very inspiring in terms of history, in terms of culture, but also in terms of the challenges that are spreading the people of Africa across the African continent. I really enjoyed the quality of the debate and both the argument of the opposition and those who want an ever closer union. It was beautiful.
I think it was a wonderful presentation. I think that what I especially enjoyed was the emphasis on the necessity of socialism as well as African unity. So it cannot just be, a capitalist united system. It has to be socialist.
I was awestruck by the chairman's presentation, his argument and his address today. It was an address that we commonly see at the union. It wasn't one that focused on the semantics or the nitty-gritties of the argument or the motion. It was one that called, very outrightly for a revolution, and the argument behind it followed that. It was a revolutionary logic, which I'm glad he brought to the union. Yeah, it's changed my views.
Uhuru, comrades, Uhuru brothers and sisters, I'm Luwezi Kinshasa, the African Socialist International Secretary General. I would just like to talk quickly about the implication, the significance of historical Chairman Omali Yeshitela presentation at Oxford Union. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela presentation at the Oxford Union on the 24th of January was the voice of the African working class in alliance with poor peasants and all honest forces opposed to world's parasitic capitalist system against the white bourgeoisie and its ally of the African petty bourgeoisie. It was a war of ideas. That's what we saw. It was the recognition by the white ruling class that they have to contend with the rising philosophy of African internationalism. It was also the evidence that we all saw of the impossibility of the white bourgeoisie and the African petty bourgeoisie to win the philosophical battles against the African working class when it's equipped with the ideology of African internationalism. This is the new trend that we saw emerging in South Florida University a few years ago, where all the writings, all the books, all the work basically by Chairman Omali Yeshitela was assembled, collected and stored in South Florida University. And also this is a new round of anti-colonial struggles, unlike in the 50s, the 60s and 70s when the struggle was led by the African petty bourgeoisie, when it used to be dynamic and progressive, but today the struggle for national liberation is led by the African working class under the leadership of the African Socialist International. And that's really important for people to understand what we saw on that day at the Oxford Union. The African petty bourgeoisie now is a reactionary social force. So it also was the struggle between the past and the future. And the future is basically a socialist revolution for a total liberation of Africa. It is an all African socialist governments, a unification basically of the African nation, all black people everywhere from around the planet being part of one nation, and Africa being the home. That's what we saw on that day, the leadership of the black working class for that historical mission. It was also the resurrection, the vindication of the unification project of the great Marcus Garvey and the late Kwame Nkrumah as the only answer to the daily national humiliation of black people everywhere by white imperialists and the new imperialists. What was also brilliant on that day, the chairman started his presentation by offering an unconditional solidarity to Maduro's Venezuela. And living here in the UK, you know, the government of the UK has refused to give back the gold of Venezuela people that was given to UK to look after. Now they're asking for that gold to go back. They refuse to do so. So it was important of that solidarity. It also was the right place for anyone who was there to begin basically to put an end to the media slander on Africa, giving the correct causes of our global suffering, and also on the causes of the crisis even here in the UK. To understand the Brexit causes, if you follow the presidential chairman, you will understand it. It was also a call to the African students who were in the room to commit class suicide. To join the future in joining the African Revolution, which means join the African Socialist International, which is the union of all African people's socialist parties across the planet. It was also a call to white youth, to white students who voted along African students, I guess, for a closer unity to win the vote against loose unity. Basically, it was a call to them to rejoin humanity by committing a national suicide and be in solidarity with Black Power. So we are winning. Join the future. Join the African Revolution. Join the African Socialist International.
That's a great site.
Yeah. Well, I just think that this is one of the most important statements that you will find Marx would have made. The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. And the problem is that most of the communists and Marxists that we've known have only interpreted the world and have never engaged in changing it. And that's exactly what we're about, changing the world. And so if you have an interpretation of the world that doesn't contribute to changing it, it's worthless. And no matter how brilliant it may seem, it's worthless. That's what we say that review of philosophy, if it can't be something that is actually made material in the real world, it's worthless. That's just what distinguishes African internationalism, African People's Socialist Party.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Unity of theory and practice.
Unity of theory and practice. Yes. So.
Hey you, H-U-R-U, free. You, H-U-R-U, free. Check out Marcus Garvey, check out John Henry Clark, check out Steve Biko. Don't be left in the dark. Hey you, H-U-R-U, free. You, H-U-R-U, free. Check out Omali Yeshitela, Rap Brown, Malcolm X, Robert Sobukwe, Che Guevara and Penny Hess. Africa, my beginning and my ending. About to show you what we are before European expansion. Look man, I'm RBG, I don't front. I pick up a brick if I'm gonna yell that any puppet president run. White power and blackface got us filling up prisons, calling SA or Azania, but a black government this isn't. To stick a black man, the pigs need no reason. Black sellouts sold their souls to neo-colonialism. Hence, we gotta try, hence we gotta fight for the...
Uhuru, I don't know about y'all, but this presentation literally does not get old. I mean, I've rewatched it so many times at this point, and it still hits, like I'm watching it for the first time. I still get the chills, and even the way the chairman, starts it off, right? He says which automatically gets him like a standing ovation or like an applause at least towards the beginning of his speech, where he says, it's necessary for us to say that this question of a closer union with Africa, between Africans or within Africa, is not a purely academic question, despite the fact that this debate is occurring within the pinnacle of bourgeois academia. And he just does that so well, pointing out, okay, we're having this discussion in this, very bourgeois academic institution, but it's not a purely theoretical question. It's not an intellectual exercise. A question of African unity is literally an essential facet of our, liberation struggle, our African liberation movement. And he clearly sort of points that out. letting you know that it's, again, not a theoretical question, it's something that he has dedicated his life to fighting for. So I thought that was so well done. And again, I get chills, okay, every single time I'm watching it. Wish I was out there when this was taking place, but it was a couple years before I got involved in the movement. But we get to rewatch it on the Burning Spirit TV YouTube, just like you all. And I just want to also shout out, some of our people who've been commenting and tuning in. I see Sandy Uhuru, who says salute to Chairman Omali and SG Luwezi. Rick Nasty, who says drip because Chairman was dressed in revolutionary fashion. Okay, that shirt he had on was amazing. And also Hura Mariah, who is also tuned in. So thank you all for watching this. And I'll also say, in the introduction, Chairman, expresses Africa's solidarity with Venezuela. Again, this was in 2019, right? Which also lets you know just how the analysis of African internationalism lets you put into context, what is the right side of the question, right? Who is the colonizer? Who is the colonized? And lets you put in, we are able to express solidarity with Venezuela at this point in time, and we still do, right? And so just wanted to mention that, especially what's going on with the U.S., bombing boats near the Caribbean and trying to, attack Venezuelan people. So just showing you the timelessness of the analysis. And I'll also say some of the voices you heard in that documentary, just towards the end, especially belong to Luwezi Kinshasa, who is the Secretary General for the African Socialist International, and students of Oxford University who gave their reflections on Chairman Omali's presentation. And then that was also Comrade Asa Somali Anpu in South Africa, or Occupied Azania as we call it, that was rapping on the outro, who's also a great contributor to the Burning Spirit newspaper. So this was a very, movement-based video production that was put together. Also, it's important to mention, earlier this year, Chairman Omali was asked back to Oxford to debate on the question, Africa must evict its colonial masters, right? That was the topic that was determined based on Chairman Omali's, lifelong leadership. And, Oxford Union would shortly thereafter rescind their invitation and sort of disingenuously suggest that, he could argue against the proposal if he still wanted to participate. And, what we clearly witnessed was the, Oxford Union, under pressure from the US government following its defeat by the Uhuru 3, bowing down and out, really, joining in on the attacks against anti-colonial free speech, despite the fact that it claims that it was founded on the basis of protecting free speech. And we actually wrote about this back in May, and you can read that article at theburningspirit.com, and it's on your screen right now. It's titled Oxford Union Chickens Out, Joins with US Government to Attack Anti-Colonial Free Speech. So go ahead and check that out. And like the chairman says, right, despite the colonizers' efforts, this genie ain't going back in the bottle, right? And the revolution will not be terrorized. So many are really uniting with Chairman Omali's, 10-minute message. And that's, the most compact, precise 10-minute, presentation. And that's precisely why, the colonizer is working overtime to silence voices like this, right? And our presence really ensures that they will not be successful, despite their best efforts. And then, of course, as you all know, your presence, right, your participation is critical in this process, which, as you all know, is why we have so many ways you can get involved and, events that you can attend to connect with the Uhuru movement and really make your own mark on our African liberation struggle that is, a timeless struggle. So with that, I'll take us through what's upcoming on, on our calendar. So on the burningspirit.com/events calendar, we have on tomorrow, Tuesday, December 2nd, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. It's the 7th annual reparations telethon, online or in person, at 2564 Gravois Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. This 7th annual reparations telethon is a fundraiser for the African People's Education and Defense Fund and the Reparations Investment Company. And APDF's work in North St. Louis includes the Black Power Blueprint, which is transforming North St. Louis through renovation, economic development, and political power by and for the Black community. And, this is literally just dual intending economic power in practice as we see it. And this is a newly launched joint program of APEDF and Black Star Industries. The Reparations Investment Company renovates properties in North St. Louis for the purpose of contributing to sustainable economic development, affordable housing, property ownership. And this investment company is, recruiting investors, donors, contractors, realtors, and volunteers to support Black community-led revitalization of properties for sale or rental, rebuilding the North Side, and generating resources for Black community economic self-reliance programs. And you can join this dynamic new initiative to support, again, genuine development in a once thriving community that is left to, literally deteriorate by decades of deliberate city policy. So you can stand in solidarity with the African community by reclaiming power, over our neighborhoods. So you could register at tinyurl.com/reparations telethon 2025. You can also join on YouTube at youtube.com/Uhuru Solidarity, and we see the links being dropped in the chats if you guys want to go ahead and save that. You can also join on Facebook, facebook.com/Uhuru Solidarity, and you can of course donate at blackpowerblueprint.org/donate if you want to help that way. So for more events and everything else that's going on, you can of course visit theburningspear.com/events. And of course, we'll be keeping you updated here on One Africa Worldview. So go ahead and make sure that you are subscribed on any of the socials. So make sure you're locked in and following us there as well. But that is it for today's show. I want to thank everyone again for tuning in to One Africa Worldview. And we want to make sure that you grab your very own, obviously, December 2025 issue of The Burning Spear. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can never miss an episode. And we also want to shout out Unemployed Scholar for their donation to our channel. So go ahead and be like Comrade Unemployed Scholars and go ahead and support this revolutionary show, this revolutionary podcast. Like I said, we stream on the Burning Spear TV YouTube, Burning Spear Media Rumble, Black Power 96.3 FM based in St. Pete, Florida, and streaming globally on the Black Power 96 FM app and anywhere you get your podcast. So until then, I want to say one Africa, one nation, Uhuru.